everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of the Email Deliverability Unfiltered series here at Kickbox. We've got Kath Pay joining us, so I'm really excited to have her here today. But to introduce the topic, email marketing is a channel that more often than not is the chief driver of traffic, conversions, and revenue for a brand. It has an average return on investment of about 42 to 1, and when fully optimized can show even greater returns than that for your email program. But if the journey that your email audience experiences when first being introduced to your brand is not a positive one, so either because you flooded their inbox with a ton of irrelevant content right from day one, or maybe you waited 2 weeks or 2 months to send them that initial welcome message, or maybe they never even signed up for your emails at all. So you're cold emailing them. These kinds of experiences can severely impact your ability to build a loyal following for your brand, and your ROI from email will be nowhere near that average that I mentioned. In fact, your chances of hitting your sales goals through other channels are also at risk if you don't nail this customer experience piece. A couple of stats from our friends over at Campaign Monitor: 59% of respondents aged 25 to 34 years old share poor customer experiences online. And 58% of customers will never use a company again after having a negative interaction. Whereas the positive experiences that you can build, 69% of customers would recommend that company, and 50% would use that business more frequently just based on having one positive experience. So, clearly you can see why this is an important topic for an email marketer to understand, which is why I am so excited to have Kath Pay here to join us for this chat today. Kath has been working in the email industry for, I think, right around 20 years, if your LinkedIn creeping that I did is accurate. Kath is a recognized one of the leading email marketing tutors within the UK, and her content is amazing. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. She's an international keynote speaker who has shared her knowledge at more conferences and events than I think I've probably ever heard of, and maybe not that she can't even count at this point. She's also the founder and CEO of Holistic Email Marketing, which is an email marketing consultancy agency that believes in developing data-driven email marketing strategies that are supported and enabled by technology, which, honestly, all of that is just music to my ears. So hi, Kath. Welcome to Kickbox's Email Deliverability Unfiltered series. It's honestly so great to have you here. And I do know that while you're normally based in London, you're actually living in Antigua for a year. Is that correct?
I am. And thank you so much for having me on this podcast or video.
Yeah.
I'm really honored. So I'm based in Antigua for a year, maybe longer. I don't know. I'll see how it goes. So if you see my hair blowing in the wind, it's because it's hot. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
So it's all exciting, and I've got a great team in London, and we're really fortunate too. Though we've got about 50% of our database or our clients are based in the US and in North America, and 50% are in UK and Europe. So it's kind of like okay, I'll give the time zone over here a bit of a go.
I love it. Yeah. Gosh, I'm actually really jealous. I'm living in Southern California, so I can't complain too much about the weather, but yeah, I would definitely swap places with you. So, cool. All right. Well, honestly, Kath, I would say like your company's name alone should give our audience, I would say, like a good idea of kind of how you and your team sort of approach email strategy. And I think one of the things that I love about your approach is that it's really all about like treating people like humans and marketing to them in like a respectful way that actually helps build that loyalty that we're going to be talking about so much today. And I think actually one of the first times that I heard you speak in person was during one of the EEC's Email Evolution conferences a couple of years ago. I think it was actually one of those little lightning rounds that they had, one of those lightning round sessions. And I'm probably going to butcher what you said because it was a couple of years ago, I think. But essentially, you were talking all about how you should treat your email subscribers kind of like friends. And how, as you do with friends that you tend to care about, you should show them respect, right? Namely, treat them well if you want them to stick around and be there the next time that you want to have a coffee, which really just hit home for me, right? Because, nobody wants to hear from that friend only when they need help with, moving or you babysitting their kid or something like that. Really, it's just, appreciating that human and I guess that holistic perspective that you bring to our industry. So I know you recently just released a brand new book that's called Holistic Email Marketing, a Practical Philosophy to Revolutionize Your Business and Delight Your Customers. And I'm hoping we're going to learn a little bit more about that today as we kind of walk through a discussion on customer experience and learn more about that holistic approach that you bring to email. So for now, I'll just say that I'm really excited to read it. We will mention a link to it within the show notes that I think are right below this. But basically it is currently available on Amazon. So go pick it up and check that out. But really, I do think, Kath, your approach is like a perfect match for this topic today, because it's all about how customer experience can boost email engagement, or I guess not, right? So, but I'd like to start with a personal question for you, Kath. And, I know, a lot of the email folks that are sort of in my circle are deliverability folks. And so most of them are kind of working on the vendor side, either at ESPs or a company like Kickbox. So I'm really excited to ask you this question, as you're working kind of more on the agency side, you're working more directly with customers and things like that. So I guess, what is your favorite part of email? And I guess, why is it that you do what you do? Like, why have you been in this industry for so long, and what do you get out of working with customers?
Yeah, that's a great question. After being in the industry for over 20 years, I'm still incredibly passionate about email, and it is ever changing, ever evolving. So it's keeping me busy. It's keeping me still stimulated enough. It's not like it's, sort of a flat channel and I have to find things to sort of, keep me occupied. But for me, email is exactly what you said at the very, very beginning. It delivers the highest ROI and out of all of the channels, right? And one of the reasons I think that is because it's one of the very, very few push channels that there are. And so and this is going to come through this conversation a lot today.
Yeah.
Because it is that push channel, right? It means that we have the privilege of pushing our messages to our customers and recipients whenever it suits us, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's incredibly powerful. We're not waiting for them to come. We're not waiting for them to have a need and come to us. We literally are just appearing in their inbox, and they can, of course, they've got a choice. Do they want to read? Do they not want to read? Do they want to save for later? Do they want to unsubscribe, right?
Yeah.
But I think, this kind of brings us around to, which is why I'm such a big believer in the holistic sort of philosophy, is essentially because we have that ability to push, we have to be very, very mindful of the customer.
Right.
Too often, marketers are very, very concentrated and focused on the brand and their KPIs. And to be honest, that's what they're paid to do, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
We weren't focused on that. But how you can translate that and turn that into something that's suitable and palatable and appealing to your actual database, that's where the magic comes in. That's where the holistic approach comes in. That's where we really, really need to be skillful, right? And so for me, I guess part of mine, because I've always been incredibly passionate about marketers. And that has been one of the things that's sort of driving me along. So for me, one of the reasons why I'm still here in email is because there's still a lot of teaching and learning and everything to be happening, both by myself, but also to be conveying that as well. Right. And so I'm really excited that I'm here today talking about customer experience, which is integral to the holistic approach. And basically, obviously customer experience isn't just an email centric or an email topic. It's all about the customer, which is the essential thing. But for me, email often kickstarts that customer journey because we are that push channel. This was a very elongated way. We're doing elongated today, aren't we? So like a big roundabout way of coming back down to the push channel. So what we're doing is we're pushing our messages, and so it kickstarts that customer journey. And if we get it wrong, then we will pay the price for it as such. Yeah, but if we get it right, again, we get to benefit from it. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's one of those, like, I feel like I've read something, well, this has been out there for a while, but like the idea that like good marketing doesn't feel like marketing. And that's so challenging when you're in email marketing, because of course, when you hit send on that email, it in essence, it is a marketing email, right? Like everybody, the recipients always know that they're hearing from a brand, but it doesn't have to feel like that. Like, I think that's where you can really separate yourself in that sense.
And this is actually tapping into what you said earlier when you heard me speak and everything. I'm a big advocate for what I call helpful marketing. And helpful marketing is basically, if we take a step back and we look at our brand objectives, right? Our business objectives, the goals that we have to achieve as a marketer, right? We have to sell this, we have to get X amount of downloads, we have to drive X amount of, MQLs and SQLs and all the rest of it. So we've got our needs. If we actually stop, right, and that's why we tend to sort of just, okay, I've got to push more messages, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, right? If we actually start to say, well, wait on, why are my customers and why are my subscribers and recipients, why are they on my database? What are their needs? How can I help them to achieve their objectives, right?
Yeah.
Certainly now we're looking at walking around the other side of the coin, right? Two sides of the coin, that's us. This is the recipient. We walk around the other side of the coin, take their hand and say, how can we help you today, right? And then what happens is, of course, you take them across, they go and achieve their objective, which, of course, by default enables you to achieve your objective. Done and dusted, everyone's happy, your subscribers happy, they're the ones that are going to be loyal and helping. And this comes down to exactly what you were just saying then. You are marketing to them. Every single email, you are marketing to them. But it's how you market. It's how you actually, form and write the copy. And it's the timing. It's using life cycle marketing to, they're innately helpful. All of that kind of stuff. That's the crucial part. And so, yeah, that's what I think is really, really essential. Helpful marketing. And I think if we were to all start to sort of, and also by nature then, or naturally, it's the very customer-centric marketing.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Can't go wrong, can you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, it's one of those, like my coin and phrase that I usually use is like provide value to your recipients, right? You have to, and it doesn't matter what that value is. It could be educational. It could be giving them a discount on something. It could just be making them laugh. Like, I think you actually recommended somebody who sends email that I have no need for because I don't vape, but there's like a company called Caterpillar Vapes, right? And you mentioned this on a webinar, and I signed up, and the emails are just hilarious. And unfortunately, I'll never buy anything because, again, I don't have a need for that. But it's such a great way to just like have a little bit of fun with the brand, and I think it really pairs well with the way that their brand works. And I think that's, for me, the value is just enjoying the email and having a good laugh. But I think that's where, like, whatever you're sending, it's got to connect with somebody and really just provide some kind of helpfulness, some sort of value to them,
Yeah. And this is a deliverability themed, webinar podcast.
Right.
So if you think about it, when you talked at the very beginning about engagement, and even if you don't end up getting the purchase from them now, or even in your case with Caterpillar Vapes, never, the fact that you're actually opening them is going to be helping with their deliverability. So you're still helping them. That engagement is still, it's worthwhile. And obviously you want the engagement that actually then over time will convert. But, as Tesco in the UK says, every little helps,
Yeah, it's true. And that's such a great point, because I think that's, like, for you folks at home, if you've been following along with this video series, that recipient engagement is one of the main drivers for deliverability, right? This is incredibly true with, destinations like Gmail, because they're so focused on user engagement, but really in all, in some ways, all mailbox providers are trying to focus on engagement in the sense that they're trying to only deliver those messages that they feel are wanted or providing value to their users, right? So, those positive forms of engagement like opens and clicks and starring messages and replying to them, I don't know, moving them to a folder, things like that are all viewed as positive forms of engagement. And they suggest that you do find value in that. And so then that mail is going to continue to show up in your inbox because you're proving to the mailbox provider that you're okay with receiving it in your inbox. And you want to try to avoid those negative forms of engagement, such as marking emails as spam, dragging them to the spam folder, just deleting them without ever opening, or honestly, even just never opening that email at all. All of these things can impact your ability to hit the inbox. So I think, we've already kind of talked a little bit about, I guess, sort of like what the customer experience is at a very high level. And I really think that's just, any impression that you give to your customers, whether it's within the email channel, whether it's just when they land on your website for the first time, any of that stuff can matter. But I guess, Kath, can you kind of just walk us through some different ways, I guess, that email marketing can help improve, or I guess impact that customer experience?
Absolutely. Basic things like making sure that your email and your landing page are not disconnected, that they are connected, and that I'm sure we've all experienced it. I know I have. You go on an email, oh, that looks really, really good. You go and click off the email onto the landing page, and then you just go, what am I doing here again? Why am I right? So for me, one of the first principle of customer experience really is everything that you do, just go through and do a sanity check. And see if it raises a question in your mind. Whether it's collecting too much data when you're first asking them to subscribe to you, whether it's that you've got 4 steps in the checkout when all your competitors only have 2, steps, whether you've got ambiguous copy and they're kind of sitting there going, I don't know what this means. As soon as you make them stop and query, raise a question, or ask why, or that, you are not delivering a good customer experience, and you stand the chance of actually getting them to jump off.
Right.
So this is, first rule: do a sanity check in your email, on your landing page. You need to be looking at it, and because customer experience is not just, like we've said, applicable only to email. It's applicable to the entire customer journey. And I don't know that email marketers are fully aware of how much, email is called upon throughout the customer journey. So that's why we need to make sure that we are there and that we're giving a great experience. Our website team we're working hand in hand with them. If at all possible, we can also hopefully get, control over our landing pages, or even, so that we can make sure that they are delivering the same message, even if it's just the same, using the same headline or the same imagery or something. It doesn't have to be absolutely. But, I know so many email marketers, so they're incredibly dedicated, and they will optimize their email design and copy and to a certain extent tone and everything like this, so that when you end up having it, it's kind of like it's a standalone, it's over here, and it's conveying something different to the recipient than actually where you're driving them to. So you need to make sure there's always that, working together as such.
Yeah. And I guess, would you say, obviously, understanding that, the buyer persona or the persona of your email recipients or your customers in general, I think is important. But I guess, do you think it's more important to understand the persona or just kind of like the life cycle of your program? I guess, or both of them, I guess, is all of that essential? I guess, what should people be focusing on if they're trying to kind of figure this out?
If you haven't got the budget or the time or anything like that to create personas, I really, really encourage you to actually just go through and identify different scenarios, different buying scenarios. I've just gone and completed this for a customer, and we just did all the different variants of different ways that they could come and sign up, whether it's because they've purchased or whether it's because they, it's the first time they clicked on a Google ad, whatever the story is. And we're going through and identifying all of those different types of, various routes.
Right.
And I would be encouraging you to do that. Ideally, you do that, have personas, and absolutely life cycle marketing, because life cycle marketing to me makes your life easy. It really, really does.
Oh yeah.
You've got something and because of those life cycle marketing emails are innately personalized. they're innately helpful, they're innately customer centric. So altogether, you're giving them a great customer experience, because that's what, you know, they're the fundamental principles of customer experience as well, I think, besides the actual removing all barriers. So no, for me, life cycle marketing is, you know, that's an easy win. It really, really is. And because every email that's being sent out is because they've done something, they've not done something, you know, that's basically it. It's based on behavior.
Yeah.
Whether they've hit a mark, or they haven't hit the mark, or they've purchased something, or they haven't purchased something, or they've been to the site but they haven't been to the site. Whatever the story is, you know, there's something behind it. And so just make sure that you have a contingency plan for it, and you're there going, great, we're going to help you along the way to keep bringing you back and back and back.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. Awesome. And I guess, you know, while we're kind of talking about life cycle marketing, I'd kind of like to just sort of dip into sort of maybe some do's and don'ts of automation and life cycle marketing. Like, I think, you know, some of the things that I've seen is, I mean, of course, we've all seen those ones where you kind of forget about a certain email that's going out, especially during Corona times, and those are just completely tone deaf, and that's a problem. But I guess, you know, what are your tips for how people should kind of handle a life cycle type of program where you know that's effective and not kind of pushing people away as opposed to really helping?
Great question. So definitely you need automated emails and programs are not set and forget, right?
Yes.
The very, very beginning, you heard a lot of them, and this was actually mainly ESP oriented, and I think they understand, because most email marketers that you and I probably know are under-resourced, under-budgeted, overworked. You know, we're on this kind of like little sort of cycle, just, you know, churning out email campaigns. And so that trigger, set and forget, it's incredibly attractive, right? And also because the automated emails, the lifecycle programs and everything, they're not necessarily the easiest or quickest to set up. And so they kind of came in with that kind of, you know, trying to sell it to you that way. And I think that was a real shame, because literally there's so many email marketers that just took them at their word and just, you know, forgot about it. So definitely don't set and forget. For me, it's exactly the opposite, right? I think that I'm a huge advocate for A/B testing. And I think we do too little A/B testing on automated programs. And I think that the best way to do it is actually when you're setting up your automated lifecycle program, we could call it a welcome program, abandoned cart, second purchase program, whatever you want to do. You set up two streams. Right, you'll have your A stream and your B stream, and you are testing a hypothesis, and you're creating different emails. Now, sometimes it might be the offer, sometimes it might be the approach, it might be educational versus benefit, could be, you know, whatever. So you're testing these different ones, and then after a period of time, you come up with the winner. Woo-woo! So that one now becomes your control, and then you go and replenish and change the hypothesis and replace it, right? So instead of the set and forget mentality, mine is a continually optimized mentality. And the beauty about this is you're not just benefiting with that particular program. If you craft your hypotheses well enough, you can actually be learning about your customers, and those learnings and insights can be brought over to your regular BAU campaigns, your Solus emails, your newsletters. It can even be taken over to your social campaign, you know, your social media, your landing pages, your website, your product pages, you name banner ads, you name it, because it's all about the customer, right? So to me, it's just a great way of doing it. So definitely do your A/B testing with your programs, because these are your life cycle marketing programs are some of the biggest money earners that you can be doing. So that the investment is well worth it. But if you just sort of go, oh, let's just do it, we'll leave it there, and then 2 years later you sort of go, oh, I wonder how it's doing, right? You haven't even checked.
Oh no.
You could actually be leaving a lot of money on the table. Which is a problem. But one last tip too.
Yeah.
Because they are more complicated to set up, and I think that is actually a barrier for marketers to be doing them. Just take a little step at a time. Instead of doing a welcome series, do a welcome email. Instead of doing an abandoned cart series of 3, just at least do the 1. Or, all I'm saying is that make it as easy for you to be able to get something up and happening than not. And also don't kill yourself trying to get them all up all at once, because ideally you want to be learning from one to carry over the insights to the other, learn from that, carry the, you know what I mean? So it's,
Sure.
it's all iterative.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I guess like in terms of testing, I mean, there's, I guess like how long would you typically maybe run one of those A/B tests before you kind of decide on a winner? Is that a very short time period? Is that kind of like a couple of weeks that you're looking? And I guess also what is the typical audience like for people that are a small business and kind of say, yeah, but my audience is probably too small. Is there such thing as too small? Can you do those tests even with that smaller list?
Yeah, so it's all based on volume, right? So the more people that come and use that program, the shorter the test cycle will be, right?
Okay, sure.
Because you have to make sure that it's statistically significant.
Yeah.
If you've only got a small amount, so you've only got a few people coming every day and everything, it's obviously going to be longer, because you still need it to be statistically significant. So that's how it's testing, and A/B testing in automated programs is different to BAU testing or campaign A/B testing.
Sure. Right? Okay. Yeah.
Because it's more time-based. It's more in line with a traditional website type thing.
Gotcha. Right.
And everything like that. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, so don't and make sure you don't cut anything off too soon. You might say, okay, we're going to look at it in 4 weeks' time. Sure, look at it in 4 weeks' time. Go do your math. Check out to see if it's statistically significant, and if it's not, you just keep it running.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Nice and easy. And like you said, just do as much as you can, do whatever you can, set it up. Obviously, if you even just set up that one campaign, you're going to learn something. You're going to get some data that comes in. So that's awesome. I guess in terms of metrics, we had an episode on metrics a little while ago that are, of course, very much focused on deliverability. But I guess in terms of measuring the success of your program and kind of like adjusting things here and there, what metrics are you looking at when you're deciding that?
That's a great question. I love this. I particularly, if we're looking at conversions, I find that a lot of, when I go and do audits for my customers, I find that they're actually using the wrong calculation for conversions, particularly when we're talking about automated programs. So what they tend to do is they're tending to use session times, which is, how many people are on the landing page, and not session times, session numbers, and then looking at the conversions. But to do that, you've actually completely and utterly missed the email factor, which, so therefore I prefer to do my calculations from the number sent. Now, admittedly, it's going to be a lot smaller because we're talking about a lot more people at this end that you're sending to, and therefore the percentage is going to be much smaller. It's going to be more accurate. It's going to give you an idea of how well the actual program is working, and also which if it's your control or your variant is working.
Okay.
But generally speaking, opens for me, I'm a little bit controversial in my view on opens. Opens are informative. Opens are good. Opens are great for deliverability. Like we were saying, right? And this is where deliverability and general marketing, I think, general email marketing, there's a little bit of confusion, because deliverability, you have to focus on the open rate, because that is what, the Gmails and Hotmails, they're the ones are looking at the open rate and saying, oh, so you're liked. Okay, we like that, right? Whereas I find when you're actually looking at meeting your business metrics, unless you're a publisher, in which you are being rewarded financially by increasing your number of opens, right? Most of us are actually more likely going to be rewarded on, conversions, like I said, whether it's purchases, or whether it's downloads or whatever your definition of conversion is. And so for me, that's a really, really key one. So the actual conversion factor. The clicks are good. Clicks are indicative or potentially indicative, so that if you can't measure the conversions, then that is the better default for me than open rate. But I also like to, because I'm so subscriber oriented, I also like to go in and look at some subscriber metrics as well. So open reach and click reach. And these ones are based basically on you identify a period, say 6 months, and then you can go in and say, okay, so our current open reach factor is 60%. So that means that over the 6 month period, you've had each individual, 60% of your database has opened up your emails once. So that's your open reach.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So that gives you a good indication on how active your database is. And then that also then gives you the benchmark to say, okay, I want to be increasing this. Now, frequency is going to be increasing that. If you increase it. So increasing frequency will increase your open reach. Decreasing frequency will probably decrease your open reach. But again, this is a whole art of everything, isn't it? So I call deliverability an art, because too frequent and you're going to fall into deliverability issues.
Right.
So, yeah. So, and this is why you need to be sort of really looking at things, looking at your data, creating your own hypotheses, creating your own questions, and then putting those tests. Don't just say, oh, okay, so, Kath said I should increase my frequency, so full stop, I'm going to do that. That's the last thing I want you to do. You question it. You look at your data. Does that make sense too? Well, yeah, it could. Okay, we're going to do a trial. But we're going to do, a control. So we'll have our control, and our control will be receiving the regular frequency. And then we'll have our variant, is a different group, that's going to be receiving the increased frequency. And that way you can actually, but when you're doing things like that, again, don't just looking at opens. Because if you just look at opens and you're increasing frequency, I can tell you that they're going to decrease. Right. But like I said, you're actually going to increase your open reach. And your sales will increase as well. But again, I'm not saying that as a bucket, this is it. Go for the frequency factor or anything like that. There's too much to take into account. So you need to be the marketer and query your own data, query your own brand, understand your customer, database and everything, and what their needs are. So, but of course, bringing us back to lifecycle marketing, a great way of increasing frequency is to be implementing lifecycle marketing. And it's increasing it so that it's helping your deliverability, because they always get high open rates, high clicks and everything. But it's also providing that customer service to your customers. So they're actually not going to be worrying too much about the increased frequency, because you've actually helped them. You've provided them something of value.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. And I guess, the negative interactions, right? So figure, spam complaints, of course, are very heavily weighted by mailbox providers. So I guess when you're looking at someone's program, do you see times where they run a test, or they're sending too many emails, or that the emails just aren't kind of helpful enough, and that leads to like high complaints and unsubscribes? Like, I think that's something that people tend to look at. They're like, oh, the open rates are amazing, but then they don't look at the fact that that's also the highest complaint rate they've had in 6 months as well, right? So how does that factor in?
Yeah, no. Complaint rates, unsubscribes, they all need to be taken into consideration. You can, if you want to increase your open rates, really, really easy. You just go and do those. I'm blanking on the. What are those ones where you write a blog and it's just basically, it's clickbait.
Love clickbait. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. People will open them. Will they convert? Right. No. Will they complain? Very likely, right? Because it's all about setting your subject line sets an expectation. If you don't meet that expectation, then they're going to be disgruntled, right? So yes, and that's why I'm saying you've got to be careful, because we can get so carried away with, oh, I've got to open up, increase the open rate and everything.
Right.
And we do all these, scheduled emails.
Yeah.
I know someone who's done that, right? And oh my goodness. And he gets, but he's worked it out to being a fine art. I'm not advocating that at all. But there's lots of tactics that you can do to increase your open rates, but it's not going to increase your conversions. In fact, it's going to decrease them. So that's why, looking at everything, looking at the whole picture, and that includes the complaints, the unsubscribes, the bounces, everything like that, is absolutely crucial. And that's why you should be measuring everything.
Makes sense. Yeah. I love that you actually brought up the word expectations, because I think this is such a big part of that customer experience. Like, whether hopefully you did sign up for the emails that you're receiving in some way, either through a purchase or, like a newsletter sign up or something. But whatever you promised at that point, right? If you promise a certain type of email or a certain frequency, that's a great thing to do so that they can understand what to receive from you in the future. But if you change that, or if you mess that up, or if you kind of, like with those subject lines, if you overpromise and then under deliver, that is just the worst thing that you can do, not just for deliverability, but again, for that overall experience that you're having with the brand, right? Like, I think I even just, I bought a printer recently. Well, I tried to buy a printer recently. It was available on the website. They sent me an email being like, hey, cool, you're going to get your shipment notification soon. And then the next email I got was actually like, oh, actually, this is on back order and we have no idea when this is going to come. It's been on back order now, I think, for a couple of months. And it's one of those, like, I'm so frustrated by the fact that they didn't just tell me up front that it wasn't in stock. That is, I will never buy from that brand ever again, because they set my expectations to a certain level to say, you're going to get that thing that you asked for and paid for. And I'm still kind of waiting on it. So I still need to just kind of find another printer and move on and cancel that one. But still, yeah, I think that experience has been just so negative for me and so frustrating and just not helpful at all, that it's really driving me to talk badly about that company at this point,
And, for me, it's just a principle in life. Setting and meeting expectations is the key to happiness. And so if it's a key to happiness in life, then of course it's the key to happiness in email marketing as well. It's going to follow through.
Yeah.
And it's just so important. And we can even go even more granular. Sorry, I don't want to be bashing on opens, but I'm
yeah. They're wonderful in ways. It's okay. It's okay. You can go for it.
So if we think about, and I have done this so many times with my clients, you are doing a subject line, right? And you've tested and you found that the generic subject lines, i.e. the short, remember how we've always asked the question, right?
Yeah.
The last 20 years, that question has been asked of me. Are short subject lines better than long subject lines, or vice versa, right? How long should the subject line be? Mm-hmm. And to me, it's the wrong question to be asking. Mm-hmm. It's all about generic versus specificity.
Yeah.
So generic by innate nature are short, right? Specific ones are by innate nature long. Not always the case, but more often than not. So if we want to be doing that, then if I were to send you an email with a very short, snappy, ambiguous subject line, you'd be going, oh, I wonder if that's all about, right? Yeah. But at the same time, you're there and you've got, I wonder if it's this, or I wonder if it's that, or, you know what I mean? Like your expectations have been set by yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're there and you're opening up and you go, oh, no, that wasn't it. Okay. And you move on, right? So it doesn't mean that you're going to be blocking them, unsubscribing, hitting complaint or anything like that. But it means that you're not going to be converting. Whereas if I were to do a very specific subject line, I will probably get less opens because it's not as generic, attractive, ambiguous, and all the rest of it. So, but I'm going to be attracting the right audience who are more likely to convert, right? Yeah. And this, again, bringing this back to deliverability, this is the struggle that we have. Mm-hmm. So I worked with the client. It's actually a case study in my book, which is available on Amazon. It's a case study with printer picks. And what we did was, whilst their deliverability was really, really bad, we actually went for the ambiguous short subject line factor as a strategy, knowing that we were going to get fewer sales, but in order for the bigger picture to get increased deliverability.
Right. Boosting engagement. Yeah.
So we did that, got increased engagement, higher open rates. Either ISPs started liking us more, and then we could convert back to our more specific subject lines, which actually gave us higher conversions.
Yeah, so, I love that. That's such a cool strategy.
Yeah, it's just about being clever and understanding some basic things. And again, looking at your data. Your data might be different to what I've found generally being. And that's absolutely fine, because every company is different, products are different, audience is different. So what I'm saying is just generally what I have found, that's the case.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, great. And I think that's one of those, we didn't really touch on this today. And honestly, I feel like we're running out of time here. This has been such a great conversation. But really, like, follow your metrics. I love that you mentioned that, because that's something that I feel really, really strongly about as well. But really, like, also, pair your goals with email, or your business goals with your email goals, right? Like, make sure that you're tracking the right things, that you're optimizing the right things. Do audits from time to time, not just on your authentication, but also just on your metrics, making sure that everything that you're sending makes sense, that it has a place within your bigger structure. All that good stuff is so important. So cool. All right. Well, like I said, we're kind of running out of time. So I want to jump to a question for you, a little bit more of a personal one, Kath. We've asked this of a couple of other people, and this is tough when you've been in the industry for as long as you have, but if you had to kind of pass along sort of like one tip, one bit of advice for people that are pursuing a career in our industry, I guess what would that be?
Right. That would be, this is interesting, don't accept everything that you hear. That's what I find is the biggest problem. And this comes from, there's a root cause. And the root cause is because email marketers are under budgeted, under resourced, overworked, right? So therefore we tend to sort of go, oh, there's an article, so-and-so wrote it, brilliant. I'm going to read that. Oh, okay, that's it, done and dusted. They forget the extra step of, wait on, is this applicable for my business? Is this applicable for my business needs? Is this going to help us? They just go and implement it. Someone says, welcome, programs of 5 emails are going to give you the best results.
Right.
And so someone just goes and does it blindly. So for me, it's a case of don't accept everything and question everything you hear. And when I say question, I don't necessarily mean doubtful question, but I mean question it from perspective of you, your business, or the company you work for, and everything. So that for me is the biggest one. So I spoke last year at a conference in Vegas, Email Innovations. And it was really, all about asking the audience to start just thinking, I don't want to say thinking for themselves, because that sounds like we're sheep, because we're not sheep. Taking that extra step and start to sort of think things through, and don't just, I have an issue with best practices as well, because a lot of best practices, as you guys know, are not necessarily best practices at all. A lot of them are just old best practices which were relevant but are no longer relevant, or they're trends that have somehow been turned into a best practice because they became popular, and suddenly if they're popular equals best practice, which
it's the best way to get one. Yeah.
Well, some of them have been actually planted into the industry by a service provider because it's a self-serving one. It helps them as opposed to helping the marketer and helping the customer. So, it's kind of like, don't just say, if something is a best practice, don't just go, oh, great, best practice, got to do it.
Yeah. I love that. That's such great advice. And it's one of those like where, you didn't even touch upon the actual like misinformation that is spread around in our industry, where there are things that are completely infactual, right? The fact that people are still saying that just using the word free in your subject line is going to damn your mail to the spam folder. It's much more complicated than that, right? So I think that's, we're not even touching on that, but I think you have a great point, which is, like there could be 15 people that are all experts in the same field and giving completely different advice, and it's relevant to their business, or maybe it's relevant to your business, but you really need to kind of pair that and decide, is this the right strategy for me and for my brand voice and all that stuff. So that's such great advice. And that's definitely not something that I would have thought to share. So awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much.
And I'm not saying don't read.
Of course. No, read as much as you can. Yeah.
Yes. Put a bit of a sanity check there.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. All right. Great. Well, audience, I think if you guys have been paying attention at all today, you probably now realize the true importance of, why the customer experience is ever so important, not just with email, not just with deliverability, but just for your overall brand, right? So by focusing on a holistic and let's say like a more human approach within your email marketing strategy and implementing some of the tactics that Kath was talking about today, you should be able to improve your experience for anybody who's interacting with your brand. And of course, that's going to help your email program. So I guess fellow email geeks, stay tuned for the next episode. As I mentioned, it's going to be us digging into a bunch of misconceptions about email. There really is so much misinformation that's been passed around. So some of it needs some serious debunking. So we're going to try to tackle that next time. Thanks to you, Kath, so much for being here, and have a great rest of your year in Antigua. I think that rooster that was crowing in the background was trying to steal your attention. So I think it's time for you to go. But thanks so much. It was really great chatting with you.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I had an absolute pleasure. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks. All right. Bye, everyone.